All areas of mass media are constantly criticized for alleged failures in the delivery of messages. One of the largest ethical issues in the category of visual media has always been stereotyping. Ever since the invention of the photographic image, stereotyping in visual communication has been one of the tough decisions made by different forms of mass media. The word stereotype originated in the printing industry as a method of making identical copies, and the practice of stereotyping people is considerably the same. In 1999, a startled trend became much clearer. Of the 26 newly released television programs, not one portrayed an African American as the main character, and almost all of the secondary characters did not include racial minorities. In response, advocacy groups for colored people, Hispanics, and many others organized protests and boycotts. All of a sudden, actors on primetime shows started being of racial minorities, and networks also added producers, writers, and directors as well. Some networks also created a vice president of diversity position to help oversee the network diversify. Racial stereotypes are not only an issue in entertainment media. An example of this is the media coverage of the Los Angeles riots in 1992. The news shows led people to believe that African Americans were responsible for the riots, but only 36% of people arrested were African American. A person of color is much more likely to be shown physically restrained on television news than a white person. In 2000, a study shows that less than 12% of newsroom staff was of racial and ethnic minorities. A similar study was conducted again in 2008, which showed the situation has not improved severely. The percentage of minority journalists working at daily newspapers was a little below 14%. Due to this underrepresentation, those whose perspectives are already privileged control the news media. When news media connect racial minorities to roles of villains and troublemakers, the public's perception of these groups is altered greatly. 5 specific ethical issues that have been seen in visual media are accuracy, fairness, integrity, diversity, and social responsibility. Visual media needs to hold a high standard of ethical conduct in serving public interest. Standards for professional conduct include not describing a person by their race unless it is applicable to the story, being sensitive to nuances of any reference that may offend a minority group, and being aware of racial stereotyping in photographs. Sex, race, age, sexual orientation, and religion are just a few of the categories that are evident in stereotyping. Even though it is a very difficult process, society has slowly began to make a slight transition away from stereotyping. Since many people today rely on secondhand sources for their information, we can see that mass media plays a very large role in determining the content of our culture. Stereotyping is a product of culture. Therefore, mass media has strong influence in supporting and tearing down stereotypical characteristics.